Well, the next thing we want to look at is why think that this first cause is personal. How are you getting there? That kind of seems out of left field. Well, now I worked really hard on this next slide. It took a lot of time to make, so I hope you enjoy it. It is a rock. Yes, very difficult slide to make. But why am I showing you a rock? Well, rocks are impersonal, obviously. Depends if you're a panpsychist or not, but most of us, I think, will admit that rocks are impersonal. And they can break glass or they cannot break glass. But what determines the difference between whether the rock breaks glass or not is whatever acts upon it, whether you throw it or not, right? The rock doesn't just decide to break the glass or decide not to break the glass, right? It breaks the glass only if you throw it. That is to say that you have to act on the rock in order to cause it to bring about a different outcome. But when we look at our universe, what we see is that that the universe, it seems like, could have been a lot of different ways. It didn't have to go the way that it did. There are a lot of different ways it could go. So when we talk about the first cause, we ask, okay, well, the difference is there's different effects that this cause could have brought about. What determines the difference between those effects? Well, it's not something acting on the first cause. It wouldn't be the first cause if there was something acting upon it. And so it must be the case that it is determining these different effects. But when you think about like what's something that can bring about different effects without there being a cause acting upon it, and that'll be our next slide here. What can bring about different effects without there being some sort of cause acting upon it? Well, that sounds a lot to me like free will, right? If the thing is bringing about different effects and it's determining which effect to bring about, well, that sounds like a choice. That sounds like a free will choice to me. I'm not sure what else it would be. Another way to look at it is if the first cause is impersonal, then its effect will necessarily follow from that first cause. But what that results in is what's called modal collapse. Now, it's a really fancy term, but basically it's talking about different modes that things could be in, different possibilities or different ways that things could be, right? So it could think of the past as like a tree where there's all these different branches, like it could have gone this way, or the world could have gone that way, or it could have gone this way. And so you've got all these different branches coming out on different pathways that the universe could have gone. Well, if modal collapse is true, then all of those different branches collapse into a single stump. And there's only one line going up. There's only one way the universe could have been. And so that's what modal collapse would be. And if the first cause is impersonal, it seems that modal collapse follows because there aren't different effects. There's only one effect it could bring about because it's an impersonal cause. So our intuitions that things could be different than they are give us good reason to think that modal collapse is not true. So, for example, if I eat 5 blueberries for breakfast, it certainly seems to me I could have eaten 4 instead. And I'm sure that there are similar things in your life where, yeah, that happened, but it seems like it could have been different. It seems like it could have had, one less potato chip, whatever the case may be. Well, that intuition, if it's true, then it gives you reason to think that modal collapse is false, which then gives you reason to think that the first cause is not impersonal. So what sort of an objection can we think about at this point? Well, one that's been raised, I think this was raised by Waylenberg, was that God's choices, right? So, well, what the question raises, like, well, what causes God's choices? So if God brings about the universe, is that an uncaused event? So if this is supposed to imply God, well, if it successfully would imply God, then it can only do so by positing something that can bring about uncaused effects, the choices. But if uncaused effects are possible, well, then there goes your first premise in your argument, the Kalam argument. And here, what I would say is that this sort of an objection only works if you think that all events, like the event of God creating the universe, that all events have to be preceded by some prior event. So there would have to be some event that causes God to cause the universe. And so some have postulated like, well, yeah, but God intends to create, and then his intention to create causes him to create. But then what causes the intention? And so go on and on back you can go. Well, the problem is that you're either going to get to an infinite regress, or at some point you're going to hit a stopping point, and that stopping point is got to be something other than event. And so if you can think of beings causing events, well, then the problem sort of evaporates. because God as a being can cause the event of his creating the universe. I think our own experience of our own choices are that way. If we choose to do something, we caused our choice, right? So maybe we caused the intention to cause the choice, but somewhere back there, we're as a being causing the choice that we make. And so it seems to me that this objection doesn't really pan out, because if beings can cause events, well, then God as a being can cause the event. It doesn't have to be a prior event that acted on God in order for him to do that. Thank you for listening. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. Please also look at the show notes in order to find a link to our group so that you can join our next discussion. I look forward to chatting with you.